Clack. 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 In the dimly lit hallway of the Crimson Magic Tower, aggressive clatters of high heels could be heard. The owner of them was a beautiful woman with hair black as ebony, skin white as snow, and eyes red as blood. She was the master of this very tower, the world's strongest archwizard, and the pinnacle of magic herself, Kierra Scarlet Aspenova. Master. Would you please reconsider your decision? Following her with hurried steps was a timid-looking young girl, resting several thick books in her arms. No. It is final. But I made all the preparations to fill in my space already. There should be no confusion on that part. It's not about that, Master. Before long, they had reached the ritual room. Kierra flung the door open, revealing the spacious interior filled with ingredient shelves and magic scrolls. Stop. She turned around to stare at her disciple, her blood-red eyes as calm as an undisturbed lake. You are not allowed to go inside this room. This will be the final goodbye, Angelica. Tell everyone that it was mildly fun staying with them. Angelica could not help but bite her lips in frustration. Although her master was always harsh on everyone, she was also the one who made them who they were. This was her tower, and yet she was leaving for another world, ridiculous. Alas, she had no choice but to bid goodbye to her lifelong teacher. The door slowly closed as tears began to fall from the corner of Angelica's eyes. Master. We will come and find you. Just wait. You can't, idiot, stay well. Thud. Kierra smiled bitterly, looking at the closed door a bit before turning away. As she briskly walked toward the center of the room, where a giant magic circle was drawn on the ground, she used telekinesis to gather thousands of different ingredients and floated them behind her. With graceful and precise movements, the intricate parts landed themselves on various places of the magic circle, just as the woman reached the center. Heed my call, O Ancient One. Her voice, full of dignity and nobleness, rang through the room. Soon after, the space itself shook violently, and a crack appeared above where Kierra was standing. From the abyss beyond the rift, a giant eye devoid of a pupil opened slowly. So you have decided. The creature beyond the rift spoke with a neutral voice, looking intently at Kierra. Exactly, my partner. Will you help me? I shall not refuse. Many thanks. I also shall not disappoint you with a boring adventure. A soft smile bloomed on Kierra's face. The creature was powerful enough to devour planets, but the only thing it sought was entertainment, just like her. Nevertheless, Kierra began to draw mana from her body, just as the creature was doing the same. It all began in nothingness. It all returns to nothingness. The two poured their energy into the magic circle and successfully ignited a blinding white light from the magic paint. The parts scattered on the ground started to levitate, each linking their energy to a part of the intricate formula. They shone brilliantly like stars in the night sky, creating a dreamy scene of a galaxy in which Kierra was the singularity. In other words, nothingness is life and yet death. In life, we seek joy. In death, we seek solace. Once again, the space itself shook, this time even more intensely than the last. An enormous amount of mana began to swirl inside the room, blowing the shelves away. Beyond space, beyond the stars. Oh almighty magic. Bring me to a place of elation. Gradually, it was getting brighter and brighter, just as Kierra's heart was beating faster and faster. She had longed for an exciting adventure for too long, she couldn't wait anymore. The light engulfed Kierra. Transcend the stars. Central Divine Realm. A woman was awoken by the loud blowing sounds of the wind. Laying on the rather comfortable grass of the vast plain, she silently stared at the blue sky. The pitch-black wizard robe tailored for the master of the Crimson Magic Tower she wore made her stand out in the sea of green, like a piece of boba in the matcha milk tea that she'd drunk the day before. Kierra raised her hand and spread it out before closing it into a fist. Yes. She rejoiced. Who would have thought that her star-transcending ritual actually worked? She knew right away that this was not her old world, after all, there was only one yellow sun here instead of 4 colorful ones. Kierra sat up and grabbed the giant witch hat lying nearby, her favorite piece of clothing, and put it on before slowly rising to her feet. Let's take a stock first. Firstly, she'd successfully traveled to another universe entirely, which was good. She couldn't wait to start exploring this world. But there was a problem, her mana reserve was currently in a state of near depletion. She'd reckoned she only had around 1/10 of her normal amount. The spells that she could do and the number of mythical creatures she could summon were quite limited. She couldn't call her partner either, what a drag. Now, that didn't mean that she was weak. Well, technically yes, but her weak is worldly different from the normal weak. It's fortunate that my mana circles are still fine. she was confident that she wouldn't lose to any ordinary Archwizard, even with only a tenth of her mana pool. And it seemed like the energy familiar to her was present in this world as well, so she could recover slowly over time. Slowly, because her mana cap was simply too high. Besides that, though, she also felt another type of energy flowing in the earth, just very faintly. Interesting. Either way, now that she'd grasped the general situation, it was time to find out if there were any people here. Kierra closed her eyes and began to spread out her mana, scanning for energy sources in the radius. Even normal folks had mana inside their bodies, albeit small, so unless they were strong people capable of hiding their mana together with their presence, nothing could escape Kierra's keen sense. Eventually, Kierra found a rather unusual bunch of people in the distance. Their bodies did not have any mana, instead, there was that same energy that she felt in the earth, concentrated in their abdomens. And they appeared to be fighting? Very interesting. Curiosity poked at her brain. Kierra used telekinesis to lift herself into the air before flying in the direction where she felt the energy. Kierra's witch hat and robe fluttered in the wind. Looking around intently with her crimson eyes, she could see that there were tall mountain ranges surrounding this plain. The peaks were all covered with white clouds, but she could easily make out the shapes of different houses and castles on some of them. The scene was somewhat dreamy, if Kierra had to describe it. Before long, she'd finally arrived at the location. On the ground were two wounded women who appeared to be desperately fighting against a group of people. That group of people was composed of a relatively handsome man, a fierce-looking woman, 3 more people, and a dignified-looking middle-aged man standing aside. One of the 2 women shouted something, but Kierra couldn't understand it. To better grasp the situation, she figured that it would be better to find out what they were arguing about first, though her heart had already tilted toward the 2 poor-looking women. "Come to me, Sylph." Following Kierra's gentle call, a small orb of green appeared beside her. It was Sylph, the low wind spirit. "Grant me the power to understand their words." Q. The orb danced around a bit, then infused its power into Kierra. "How terrible of you, Lightning Tiger Sect. This is daylight robbery. You all should be ashamed. Stop babbling, poor little girls. That pill should not be wasted on trash like you. Hand it over." "No. We found it first." "How stubborn. That young man sure talks a lot of crap." Either way, seeing that the group was about to beat up the 2 women again, Kierra removed her passive camouflage magic and landed right between them. "Stop. You lot, fall back." Kierra's dignified voice rang through the space. The people were all frozen in shock. Not only because they'd never seen someone dressed in weird clothes like her, but also because of the otherworldly beauty that this woman possessed. After a bit of awkward silence, the people finally snapped out of their trance. Did they really freeze in front of this woman? She didn't even have a cultivation base. A normal woman. "You'd better get out, strange woman. I don't want to hurt innocent people." The handsome man tightened his hand, holding the sword, and glared at Kierra. "Aren't you robbing these 2 girls? I appreciate your intention, but you can't do anything against them." One of the girls tried to grab Kierra's shoulder, but her hand was caught instantly. Are you sure you're being robbed?" Gulp. There was something in Kierra's voice that made people nervous. It was as if they were facing a mountain that could never be surpassed. "Why yes, but..." Kierra decided that it was fine to trust these girls for now. She could beat them up later if they were lying anyway. "I warned you, ACK. Wind Blast, 4. A magic circle was constructed in the blink of an eye before Kierra, and with a flick of her finger, an intense gust of wind came out, blowing the entire group of people away. Ugh, what? Except the middle-aged man, it seemed. He somehow persevered by stabbing his sword into the ground. Kierra also felt that the mysterious energy helped him block her spell as well. How did you do it when I couldn't feel anything from you?" The man angrily questioned. Why should she answer that? No way, it can't be. The man's pupils trembled. What now? Fusion stage. Answer me, whose sect's elder are you? Fusion stage. The 2 women behind Kierra gasped, snapping out of their confusion after seeing Kierra's strength earlier. Kierra, meanwhile, felt that this was all too dramatic and silly. She just wanted to quickly get over it. So she did what any sensible person would, slapping the man in the back of his head real hard with telekinesis. Ack? The man hugged his head, quivering in pain and wheezing. Confusion soon turned into anger. The man burst out every ounce of his chi and began to chant something. Oh, this might be interesting? Kierra waited patiently in anticipation of the foreign spell, while the 2 women were shivering in fear. Well, this is quite awkward. It had been almost half a minute, yet the man was still chanting. If this was a real battle to the death, Kierra would have destroyed this man 1,000 times over. What was wrong with these people? Eventually, though, the chant was completed. I summon you, great ancient dragon of gold. From behind the man, a long snake-like figure shot itself into the sky and floated there. It had magnificent jaws full of sharp teeth, thick and glossy golden scales, and a pair of fierce slit-red eyes glaring at her. In the eyes of Kierra, though, it was nothing more than a big snake. How disappointing. Kierra sighed and snapped her finger. August. Gra. A roar so loud that it shook heaven and earth could be heard. From behind Kierra and the girls, a giant beast soared into the sky. It was the queen dragon of fire, August. With her huge wings, blood-red scales, and a menacing mouth that could breathe out metal-melting fire, she was Kierra's first familiar. Keek. The three people besides the Archwizard had their jaws dropped. They stared in horror as August mercilessly devoured the golden dragon with ease, tearing it apart like a simple snack. Kierra nodded in satisfaction. Maintaining August with her current mana was quite wasteful, though, so she called her dragon back right after the golden snake died. Now. Hi. Kierra turned around and was about to console the robbery victims, but she was instead greeted by two cowering girls, who looked like they were about to cry any time. I really should have just beat that guy quickly instead of waiting. Alas. Gulp. Walking meekly behind the strange woman, Bai Qing could not help but gulp nervously. Previously, she and her junior martial sister went out to complete a task from her sect and luckily found a Foundation establishment pill. On the way back, though, they were ambushed by the people of the Lightning Tiger sect. They were tailing them all along. When all hope was lost, somehow this woman appeared and easily took care of those people, including an elder of that sect. She even healed the two. Too strong. So this is the composure of a fusion stage cultivator. Bai Qing and the little martial sister looked at the woman's back in admiration. In reality, Kierra didn't even know what a cultivator was, she'd barely calmed the girls down after chasing that man away. Kierra was thanked repeatedly, then got an offer to follow them so they could repay this debt. Needless to say, Kierra agreed. She had nowhere to go anyway. So, what did that man do? Suddenly, Kierra spoke, her step never stopped. You mean? Bai Qing asked. Literally, what spell did that man cast? I've never seen it before. Eh? Bai Qing pondered. I think he just made a dragon out of his chi. The three fell into a brief silence as Kierra was processing what in the hell was chi. Firstly, Kierra said. Calling that thing a dragon is an insult to real dragons. Got it? Why yes. Secondly, explain to me what chi is. Huh? The two girls were confused as hell. Was she trolling? So, chi is essentially the life force that exists in all things. It can be cultivated by people who are qualified and be used for many things. Bai Qing explained anyway. The energy inside your body right now is also chi? Kierra turned back and stared at them expressionlessly. Why yes. Are you testing us? No. They continued walking. Kierra decided not to ask anything further, mainly because she thought that the scope she was dealing with was much bigger than she'd expected. She wanted a whole session in a calm place. This is exciting. In any case, the fact that the people here got stronger by harnessing a completely different energy than mana piqued her interest. And it seemed like they couldn't feel mana as well. How peculiar. Eventually, the three decided to up their speed by switching to flight. They quickly arrived at Qinling Peak, one of the 4 peaks belonging to the White Lotus sect, of which Bai Qing was the first disciple. When Kierra flew here, she'd noticed there was some kind of protective arrangement surrounding this whole peak range as well. She could easily break through it, but the structure of it was interesting nonetheless. Thank you so much for this, elder martial sister. Don't worry about it, go back and try your best. The little martial sister left with the pill. Bai Qing was already in the middle of the Foundation establishment stage, so she didn't particularly need that pill. Now. Please follow me, dear benefactor, Bai Qing turned to Kierra. All right. He followed Bai Qing into a relatively big house on the peak. The architecture was certainly foreign for the Archwizard, but she thought that this wasn't bad for a poor house. Inside the house, Kierra could feel 8 or 9 more girls, some staying in their own rooms alone, some gathered in groups. And above all, a woman stronger than all of these girls, including Bai Qing, was in a large room. And that was precisely where Bai Qing took her. Clack. Master, I'm back. On the excessively large tatami floor, a woman is sitting serenely in a lotus position. She wore a bleach-white cultivation robe, which was in total contrast with her pitch-black hair that cascaded down her shoulder to the floor. The woman slowly opened her eyes, revealing a pair of brilliant purple eyes, like amethysts. Those, combined with her exquisite facial and body features, created an unreasonable beauty. "So you have," the woman spoke, her voice soft, almost like a whisper. "Come inside, I'm sure you have something to tell me." She looked at Kierra. Because Kierra was used to sitting on chairs, not on floors, she made a simple wooden chair and sat down. Besides, she liked looking at things from above. "Let me introduce both sides first." Bai Qing cleared her throat before she spoke. "This person here is Yu Chen, the martial master of Qinling Peak, also my master." Yu Chen nodded at Kierra, and Kierra nodded at Yu Chen. "And this person is my benefactor, Kierra." Kierra Scarlet Aspenova, the Archwizard, corrected Bai Qing, who seemed to be struggling to pronounce her name. Kierra then nodded at Yu Chen, and Yu Chen nodded at Kierra. "Yes, so what happened was..." Bai Qing told the whole story to Yu Chen, who quietly listened, only frowning when the ambush was mentioned. "I see. So that was what happened." Yu Chen said quietly, glimpses of cold murderous intent could be seen in her eyes. "Don't worry, Bai Qing, I will not tolerate this kind of behavior from them. Master. I will make them pay the price. Let me use divine sight to look for them." Bai Qing watched intently, and admiration filled her eyes. Divine sight was a skill almost exclusive to her master, allowing her to peer into far distances, an omniscient eye. Yu Chen's eyes began to glow intensely. It seems as though they are back at their sect," Yu Chen said. "They seem quite angry." "Exactly. And the two people of Qinling looked blankly at Kierra, whose left eye now had a brilliant golden color. "What?" Yu Chen tilted her head in confusion. "What?" Kierra asked back. Clairvoyance 7, a spell that Kierra frequently used. It allowed her to peer into far distances, which was basically the same as Yu Chen's skill. Silence filled the room. Bai Qing was seriously thinking about the possibility of the woman in front of her being an immortal. What bullshit is this? Yu Chen was equally stunned. She didn't at all imagine that there would be a day in her life when her skill would be used by somebody else. The silence didn't last for much longer, though, as Yu Chen had finished looking for her enemies' positions. "In any case, allow me to say thank you, Kierra." Yu Chen bows her head lightly toward the woman in the chair. "My disciples are very precious to me. I don't know how to repay you enough." Bai Qing gasped. She had never seen her master bow her head before, not even to the sect leader. Who was Yu Chen? The genius of the millennia, the phantom sword of Yunluo, and the hope of the White Lotus sect. "If so," Kierra replied calmly, "I need you to answer me a few questions." Let the fun begin. Kierra was ready to learn everything about these cultivators. Sitting with Kierra alone in her room, Yu Chen was confused, and rightfully so. For saving her precious disciples' lives, she'd expected Kierra to demand some precious magic tools or pills, and she was ready to pay it, however. "Tell me everything you know about cultivators." This person, whom Yu Chen thought was a hidden cultivator in her fusion stage, just asked her to recite the most elementary bits of knowledge. Was this a new kind of insult? But upon careful observation, Yu Chen thought there might be more than that. Although the strange woman's face was always devoid of emotion, Yu Chen had a feeling that she was genuinely curious. She had lived for almost 800 years, and this was the first time she had met someone as peculiar as this. "I see how it is." Eventually, Kierra spoke up. She'd learned that the people of this world also seek strength, wealth, and fame, but above all, they seek immortality. By cultivating the energy called qi, they were able to extend their lifespans, get stronger, and eventually ascend to a higher realm and be an immortal. In reality, this concept had somewhat existed back in Kierra's world as well. If you surpassed a certain level in harnessing mana, you could theoretically stop aging completely. Kierra herself had also lived for a good 500 years before she got bored and tried to get here, and she was confident she could exist until the end of time. In any case, through questioning, it seemed as though the people here didn't have a perception of mana. The question of why remained, and another question rose: why was she able to perceive qi, their energy? Yu Chen spoke, breaking Kierra's train of thought. "Are you really not a cultivator?" "I am not," Kierra replied. "Then, what are you?" "No, excuse me. My curiosity got the better of me." "I don't mind. I am a wizard," Kierra proudly proclaimed. "I use a different kind of energy instead of qi, you just need to know that." "A wizard," Yu Chen muttered. The room fell into silence once again. Both of them were people of few words, and they had a lot to think about in the first place. Yu Chen, was it? Yes. I have a proposal for you. Kierra stood up from her chair and walked closer to the window, where she could see the beautiful afternoon plain in its entirety. Yu Chen's eyes followed the Archwizard. She felt nervous for some reason. After a brief pause, Kierra turned around and looked at Yu Chen. Her eyes seemed to glow with excitement. No, amusement might be more correct. Would you like to join my wizard tower? Kierra wanted to erect another crimson tower. This time, it would be a magic cultivation type of tower. Kierra was excited. Yes. You can imagine it as a sect for wizards. You see, I used to own one before coming here, and I want to re-establish it again. But I'm not a wizard. I can teach you to be one. A slight smile appeared on Kierra's face. Just in time, I am also interested in your cultivation. Kierra walked calmly toward Yu Chen before putting her mouth right next to the woman's ear. I can help you get stronger, and you can help me get stronger. Great deal, isn't it? Kierra whispered, and a hint of coquettishness could be heard in her sweet voice. Yu Chen, who always prided herself on keeping composure in any situation, nearly jumped. Kierra's whisper tickled her brain like no other, making every single strand of hair on her body stand. Her steady heartbeat became irregular, thumping fast and loud. Well, think about it, Kierra whispered once more before retreating. Looking at Kierra, who was now staring out the window again, Yu Chen could only think. Too strong. That woman's temptations were like a demon's, sweet and alluring to no end. She barely resisted the urge to push her down. Meanwhile, Kierra was secretly smugging in her heart. Too easy. She'd learned in her long life that this was the optimal strategy to achieve what she wanted in a deal, pulling the opponent into a trance. She didn't even need to offer a single strand of hair to the opponent, most of the time, just her voice was enough to ensnare them. In reality, there was only one woman whom Kierra was forced to use this tactic on. She could suppress just about any opponent with her magic anyway. Here, however, she had limited mana, and she wanted to keep an amicable relationship with these people, so she chose not to go the violent way. After waiting for what seemed like an eternity, Yu Chen finally spoke up. I am indeed interested in joining, but first, you need to clarify. Thud. The door suddenly flung open, and a panicked Bai Qing broke in. Master, it's urgent. Tell me what happened. Yu Chen immediately stood up, her eyebrows furrowed. The people of the Lightning Tiger sect have come here for revenge. Shameless. Intense chi escaped Yu Chen's body. She was enraged. Not only did they dare to ambush her disciples, but now they even had the gall to come here to get revenge after being beaten up? From the stand on the wall, a sword quickly flew into Yu Chen's hand. Lead me. I will confront them directly. Why yes. Bai Qing replied nervously. It was exceptionally rare to see her master this mad. So the two of them, no, the three of them, flew out of Qinling Peak toward the entrance of the White Lotus sect. Kierra followed quietly. She was curious about how Yu Chen would fight. Before long, they could see dozens of people standing right outside the protective array surrounding the sect. Kierra recognized the relatively handsome young man, the fierce-looking woman, and the middle-aged man, among others. They were confronting a few disciples of the White Lotus sect. You shameless lot. Yu Chen landed right in front of the group and shouted. Her voice rang loudly but somehow kept its original elegance. You dare to come here after hurting my disciples? Yu Chen pulled out her sword and began to channel dark energy into it. The sheer amount of energy radiating from her was enough to make some weaker disciples of the Lightning Tiger sect faint. Everyone, it's that woman. The handsome young man pointed directly at Kierra. That woman was the one who beat us. Immediately, all eyes were on Kierra. This is quite troublesome. In the crowd, Kierra could sense that 4 people were on a totally different level from the rest, including the middle-aged man with the fake dragon earlier. They were not quite as strong as Yu Chen, though. I see, an old man, who appeared to be their leader, spoke. Phantom sword, hand over that woman. We have no business with you. Do you think I would let you lot go? Yu Chen immediately shot back. You can't match all of us. The only hope you have is your bedridden sect leader. Isn't that right? He sneered. Yu Chen bit her lips. She really wanted to shred these bastards into pieces. Meanwhile, Kierra was calculating. Is it worth my mana to take care of these guys? She wouldn't risk summoning Auguste anymore, it would cost her too much mana. If she were to fight, she would have to finish it quickly with several restrictions, but in return, she could earn the White Lotus sect's gratitude, or at least Yu Chen's, for taking care of her enemies. Well, these guys are not much anyway. So Kierra stepped up. Keep squirming, insects. Keep squirming, insects. Kierra's firm voice rang through the space. Immediately, the disciples of both sects had their faces turned blue. Did she just call the elders of the Lightning Tiger sect insects? It seemed as though they would see a woman being ripped to pieces here, and such a beautiful one, too. Alas. Needless to say, the elders, who were now insects, had veins popping on their foreheads, clearly enraged. They glared at Kierra. The pure chi radiating from their bodies made even more disciples faint. If you're going to make them faint like this, why bother bringing them? Kierra sighed in her heart. These people, she swore, all had anger management issues. Kierra, let me take care of them. Yuchen put her hand on the Archwizard's shoulder. You stand back, Kierra firmly said. They came here looking for me in the first place, and don't you want to see how amazing my magic is? But Yuchen hated to admit it, but she didn't have the confidence to take care of those elders. She was only in the middle of the soul transformation stage, and they had 2 people at the same level as her, plus 2 in the early tier of the same stage as well. No matter how much Yuchen was stronger than usual, she couldn't beat them 1-on-4. It was also true that she wanted to see how Kierra would fight. Eventually, Yuchen spoke up meekly, biting her lips. Please. Good, Kierra nodded contently. Done with your farewell? The old man said annoyedly, pacing back and forth a bit. Let us go to a suitable place, then we fight. Sure. Kierra began to think that the overly righteous pretense of these people was not too bad now. Back in her world, useless babbling like this would only get you a fireball in the mouth. 3 minutes later, everyone had moved to the middle of the plain. Kierra stood calmly and firmly, facing 4 elder cultivators, 1 middle-aged man, 1 old man, and 2 old women. In her head, Kierra was going through the endless selection of spells she could use, although most of her favorite ones were now unavailable. Finally, she decided to choose a non-lethal spell, by her standard, mostly because she didn't want to kill. She had something planned for these idiots anyway. The wind blew. On the other side, the old man Lu Xingzheng, who was the vice-sect leader of the Lightning Tiger sect, was secretly sweating. What the hell were you thinking, stupid sect leader? He, as well as the 2 old female elders, were just fishing peacefully like normal when this idiot, useless piece of newly elected elder came and insisted they take revenge for the sect. Who the hell was going to fight a cultivator at fusion stage? You poked them, you got beaten, you deserved it. Unfortunately, the 3 couldn't refuse because the equally useless young master of the sect joined in, and the senile sect leader royally spoiled this young idiot, so the old people were basically forced by him to go kill themselves. He really wanted to punch the hell out of this arrogant brat. Alas. They also had to survive. Although they looked old, they still had thousands of years ahead of them. Lu Xingzheng glanced at the 2 old women, and they quickly exchanged nods. Let's throw this match. Their final hope was to obediently get beaten and hope that the woman wouldn't kill them, then go back and make the sect leader fight her himself. Their reputation would be damaged, but it was much better than death. Right when the spirit stone hits the ground, we will begin. Lu Xingzheng held out an ordinary spirit stone. As he flicked it into the air, millions of gears were turning in his mind palace. Okay, so he should go all out for a bit, then pretend to have slipped up, letting the opponent to snap. It happened too fast. With a single snap from Kierra, hundreds, no, thousands, of magic circles instantly appeared in the air, surrounding the battlefield like a dome. 0.1 seconds. That was the time needed for Kierra's magic circles to complete, delivering a rain of magical bullets. Bullet Hell, 6. This spell, or rather, a cluster of spells, had pretty good power and didn't cost all that much mana, so it was a fine choice for Kierra. On the other side, the 4 elders hurriedly defended by forming shields with their chi. Ridiculous. Lu Xingzheng gritted his teeth. What incredible power. By this point, the grass field had become barren from the rain of magic coming from Kierra. But it just kept going. Kierra let out a slight yawn, covering her mouth with her palm elegantly. She didn't need any sleep, but boring fights always had her yawning like this. The old man desperately thought of a way to retaliate, but there was virtually no chance he could survive if he just abandoned his guard for a second. Wait, wasn't we supposed to lose anyway? His brain finally recovered. We lost. We lost. Lu Xingzheng's panicked voice sounded, prompting Kierra to cancel her magic. Well, that was underwhelming, Kierra said, glancing at the audience. As expected, they're mesmerized by my magic. Kierra giggled in her heart. With this, they were guaranteed to join her magic tower, yes. It's not over yet. Suddenly, the middle-aged elder shouted. For the honor of our sect, ACK? Lu Xingzhong hurriedly slapped the heck out of this fool, instantly making him faint. Epsilon equals, Omicron asterisk. He almost died right there. I apologize, Lord. Kierra Scarlet Aspenova. Yes, Lord Kierra. Lu Xingzhong's voice changed dramatically, on his face now was a capitalist smile. It seems as though we were too arrogant and committed a sin deserving death against you. If you could please spare us, we will deliver to you our heartfelt compensation as soon as possible. You don't need to, Kierra responded, her face emotionless. Are you the leader of your sect? And no, not at all, Lord Kierra. Then go back and tell your leader, I will take over your entire sect in 2 days. The wind blew. Everyone was speechless, dumbfounded, and very possibly bamboozled. Granted, the Lightning Tiger sect wasn't a prestigious sect at all, but it was still a fine one. However, this woman wanted to take over the entire sect? What are you dazing for? Go, Kierra put a bit more power into her voice, which instantly sent chills to the elders. Why yes. The elders grabbed their disciples, both conscious and unconscious, and quickly ran away. Kierra calmly walked back to Yu Chen and Bai Qing. How was it? Interested in magic yet? She asked Yu Chen. Definitely. Yu Chen gulped nervously. If I may. Speak. Could you take a look at our sect leader, perhaps? I'm no doctor. I know. It's just. I don't want to abandon hope. Yu Chen's face turned bitter at that sentence. The sect leader of White Lotus had been infected with a rare disease 30 years ago. It was tamed at first, but gradually, it ate away the sect leader's vitality, energy, mind, and everything. Now, she couldn't even stay up for more than 2 hours a day anymore. Yu Chen desperately tried to find a way to cure it, but ultimately, nothing worked. So although extremely unlikely, she still wanted Kierra, a wizard that used a completely foreign energy, to diagnose the sect leader. Seeing the pleading eyes of Yu Chen, Kierra couldn't help but think about her first disciple. She was weak against these kinds of things. Well, lead the way. White Lotus Sect, Main Hall. Clack. 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 Kierra and Yu Chen were walking in the hallway. The Archwizard's heels clattered rather loudly, catching the attention of people. Hey, who's that woman? How the hell would I know? More importantly, why is she together with Master Yu Chen? Yu Chen had a history of shutting herself inside her room to cultivate for long periods of time, so when people saw her walking around like this with a strange woman, no less, they would definitely have to gossip. Wait, Master Yu Chen. May I ask, what are you doing here? An old man appeared. He looked quite on guard, eyeing Kierra in particular. Elder Xing Yu Chen replied. I am on my way to meet my master. And this woman is? She is a powerful cultivator in the fusion stage, I can verify it. Fusion stage. With that excuse, they were able to get past the elder. Yu Chen led Kierra up to the highest floor of the building, where they had to go through another hallway. At the end of it was a large and relatively luxurious-looking door. Yu Chen opened it carefully, revealing a spacious room with all kinds of high-quality things in it, bookshelves, work tables, a large balcony, a whole corner for bonsai, and many more. What caught Kierra's eye the most, though, was a simple white bed in the middle of the room. The design of it was fine, but it didn't exactly match the grandness of everything else. Lying on the bed unconscious was a beautiful but visibly sick woman, a sickly beauty. She had bleach-white long hair and exquisite facial features that shone through the cover of sickness. Kierra frowned slightly. Please. Yu Chen placed 2 chairs beside the bed, looking at Kierra nervously. Did I do something wrong? Kierra, on the other hand, was surprised. This woman in front of her had mana sickness. Interesting, extremely interesting. The long-gone fire of passion in the Archwizard's heart began to ignite once again. She finally found something that she was curious about after hundreds of years. How did this woman gain the perception of mana? How come only she did? How come she didn't realize that she was storing mana in her body? How come? Ahem. In any case, Kierra was determined to learn all about this. Yu Chen. Tell me all about the disease that this woman has. Her name is Tian Yun. Yes, Tian Yun. Now, tell me. Well, for starters, this disease is called the ghost disease, mainly due to its symptoms being similar to how a ghost would slowly haunt you and take away your vitality, your mind, and eventually your life. This matched exactly what Kierra knew. Mana sickness was a relatively common disease among wizards, especially novice ones, who had to constantly deal with mana. It could be explained briefly as mana getting clogged in certain blood vessels due to lack of management, leading to lost functionalities of the body and eventually death if not treated. Continue. The people who were known to have this disease are extremely rare, and unfortunately, no one survived. No one had been able to cure or even slow down its progress remotely. Yuchen bit her lips lightly. I see. Kierra nodded calmly in response. So there were others. Well, that was all Kierra wanted to know. There was nothing particularly more to gain. So she stood up and took off her hat, placing it on the bed. Fortunately for you, I know the cure for this, she said, taking off her outer robe. Really? Yuchen exclaimed. She was beyond bewildered and excited right now. Yes, Kierra replied calmly, unbuttoning her shirt. I will treat her now, so strip her naked for me. Excuse me? Yuchen was dumbfounded. You can leave her underwear on. Kierra looked calmly at Yuchen, who was now on fire after realizing that she had been staring at the Archwizard's almost naked body. Hurry up. I don't like exposing my skin like this. Hearing Kierra's somewhat irritated voice, Yuchen snapped out. Why yes. She quickly used Qi to sit Tianyun up and take off her outerwear while repeatedly apologizing in her heart. Then, Kierra, in her mature black underwear and thigh highs, climbed onto the bed and sat right in front of Tianyun. Gulp. Yuchen gulped nervously as Kierra put her hands on Tianyun's waist and closed the distance. To fix this problem, Kierra just needed to unclog the blood vessels inside Tianyun's body and then create a mana circle for her to stabilize the mana. Touching flesh like this was the optimal method, fast and effective, but in the eyes of the inexperienced Yuchen, it seemed quite different. Their chests are pressing against each other. The room was hot. Nevertheless, Kierra touched her forehead with Tianyun's and began to take control of the mana inside the woman's body. Slowly, she unclogged the spots one by one, using her divine control of mana. Both her and Tianyun's bodies shone a dim blue. After only 2 minutes, everything was clean. Even Yuchen, who was studying this treatment intently, couldn't help but notice that Tianyun's face seemed much better. Now was the time to make a mana circle. The first circle was easy to make, but when you reached the 10th one, the highest known to mankind, as Kierra did, everything was different. In any case, Kierra used her own mana to construct a simple circle around Tianyun's heart, then began to link it to the beating organ, making sure that the circle was connected with all the blood vessels. She had also noticed a core filled with dense qi located near Tianyun's womb. This was the first time she'd had a chance to look at a core, or, as the people here said, Dantian, closely. Done. Kierra pulled away after double-checking Tianyun's state. She quickly got off the bed and put on her shirt, leaving the rest on the bed. That fast? Yuchen stared blankly at Kierra. Yes. She should wake up fine in a day or so, Kierra replied. I see. Yuchen was skeptical. But it was also undeniable that Tianyun looked much better now. Now, what is your answer? Kierra sat down on the chair again, this time facing Yuchen. Yuchen immediately knew what Kierra was talking about. She began to think of what the woman in front of her did in just less than a day. She saved Yuchen's disciples. She beat Yuchen's enemies. She cured Yuchen's master. I want to join your wizard tower, Yuchen answered with a determined face. Kierra had done so much for her. If she dared to let her down here, would she be able to call herself a woman of integrity? Absolutely not. Even if Kierra made her go through torture, she would still want to join, just to repay this woman. Yuchen's determination rose to the sky and pierced through heaven. At this moment, even the perfectly shaped and milky pair of thighs in front of her could not be a distraction. Good, Kierra nodded contently, her blood-red lips rarely curled up. Yuchen was momentarily surprised by this change. Now, please tell me what I need to do first. To be qualified as a member of the Wizard Tower, you first need to be a wizard, Kierra replied. So I will help you form a mana circle. It is first step to becoming a wizard. A mana circle? It is similar to your Dantian in nature. I just made one for your sect leader. You mean, you will do the same for me, including the touching? Yes. This was the most excited Yuchen had ever been in her life. Meichim. Inside Tianyun's room, Kierra and Yuchen were nearly hugging each other, standing. This was the first time Yuchen had hugged anyone other than her parents 800 years ago, not to mention in her underwear. Kierra's body was extremely soft to the touch, refreshingly cold, and had an intoxicating scent that could captivate just about any soul in this realm. Worse, their heights were similar, so Yuchen was able to admire Kierra's divine face in close proximity. Needless to say, the martial master of Qinling Peak was beyond flustered. Stop moving. Kierra, on the other hand, couldn't properly focus on making a mana circle because of how much Yuchen was wiggling her body. It didn't help that the woman didn't have an ounce of mana, so Kierra had to slowly and carefully introduce the foreign energy into her body. Gulp. Yuchen gulped nervously and began to calm herself down. This was just a trial, yes. A trial to become a wizard. Silence filled the room. Kierra closed her eyes to focus. It turns out that doing this was much harder than she'd expected, but it was definitely possible. Everything was, for the best wizard in the universe. The Archwizard's mana began to sip into Yuchen's body. Slowly, from the skin to the blood vessels, filling her entire body. Yuchen herself also felt this. She quickly snapped out of her trance and started to embrace the energy spreading inside her body. It felt as though she was having a cold bath, a refreshing one. So this is mana, incredible. They spent 5 more minutes like that before Kierra decided that it was enough. Now was the real deal, making a mana circle. Endure it for a bit. Kierra announced simply and went on to fully hug Yuchen, touching her forehead with the others while the rest of their bodies squished against each other. Before Yuchen could be flustered and become even hornier, a scorching sensation hit her chest. More precisely, something extremely hot was surrounding her thumping heart. The identity of it was, of course, the mana circle. Yuchen steadied her breath once more, trying her best to keep her body, especially her chi, stabilized so as not to hinder Kierra in any way. Fortunately, both were masters at controlling their respective types of energy, so there was no hiccup. It didn't take long for Kierra to complete the mana circle. Well, there you go, Kierra pulled away. Yuchen looked blankly at her hands. She could now control both energies at the same time, although she was significantly less proficient in doing so for one than the other. There was just one problem. Kierra, Yuchen called. How do I use mana? I feel like meeting those idiot disciples again. Kierra sighed in her heart. It wasn't a bad feeling, though. Be honored, she said. This divine body, the strongest and most supreme archwizard in existence, will personally teach you magic. Yuchen was momentarily shocked by the sudden display of pride. Why yes. Put your clothes on, Kierra replied. As Kierra was going to Tian Yun's bed to take her clothes, Yuchen hurriedly stopped her. Wait, Kierra. What? I'll let us learn in this state, Yuchen said. Later, I will help refine your chi as well. Then, you would have to take off your clothes again, which surely would be an inconvenience. Why a question? Kierra smelled something suspicious, but she was ultimately convinced by the idea of starting her cultivation journey. Fine, Kierra walked closer to Yuchen again. Put out your hand. All right. Kierra grabbed Yuchen's outstretched hand, this was mostly safeguarding purposes. Now, gather mana into your palm. Machem. Good, now is the real part. Imagine a ball of fire appearing on top of your palm. Puff. Yuchen stared in shock as a small fireball suddenly willed itself into existence, burning magically in the air. This felt a bit similar to using chi, but also different, it was much more free. Not to mention the fact that she had only been able to use the dark element until now. Amazing, isn't it? Kierra's blood-red lips curled up a bit after seeing Yuchen's sparkling eyes. Please teach me more, Yuchen immediately replied after realizing the potential of mana. At this moment, Yuchen thought for the first time in her life. I could reach the top with this. Phew. A little bit over an hour later, Yuchen was sitting on the chair, exhausted. But on her face was a satisfied smile. It had been so long since she was so enthusiastic about learning something. Yes, ever since her master, Tian Yun, caught the disease. Yuchen's smile grew wider as she stared at her master lying on the bed. She could finally see her healthy tomorrow. Rest a bit, Kierra sat on the chair near Yuchen and calmly pulled out a book from her storage space to read. All right. Silence fell. As there was nothing to do, Yuchen's eyes couldn't help but dart to Kierra, who still only had her underwear and thigh highs on. Her brain couldn't help but want to admire that body more and more. Yuchen couldn't help it. In the first place, while everyone else got a Tao companion, she stubbornly refused any and all advances from everyone for 800 years, focusing solely on cultivation. Now? She was kind of frustrated, even though she hated to admit it. It didn't help that Kierra was just too charming. In an effort to divert the excitement away, Yuchen spoke up. Kierra, may I ask, what book are you reading? An advanced book on ancient magical formulas, Kierra replied after a brief pause. I see. In reality, it was just a comedy fiction book. Kierra loved these kinds of stories, they helped her relax. Shortly after, Yuchen recovered from the mana exhaustion. Kierra, I am ready, she stood up. All right, Kierra replied. Yu Chen led Kierra to the middle of the room and made her sit in a lotus position. I will begin now. Yu Chen said with the utmost serious face before wrapping her arms around Kierra's slender waist, pulling in closer and closer until it became a back hug. Feeling Yu Chen's hot breaths at the back of her head, Kierra spoke up. Is this absolutely necessary? Yes. Yu Chen lied as she breathed. In fact, she was also bullshitting when she said that they needed to remove their clothes for this. In reality, Yu Chen just needed to put her hands on Kierra's back to help refine her chi, clothed or not, it didn't matter. This is not good. Yu Chen was panicking in her heart. She didn't know why she even did this in the first place. Was she too lonely? Nevertheless, what she needed to do now was clear. While feeling Kierra's body to her heart's content, Yu Chen began to deliver her own chi into the Archwizard's body, just as she did for her. The process was, more or less, the same. Kierra could faintly feel chi before this, so things went a little bit smoother than earlier, however. With Yu Chen's help and Kierra's unparalleled talent in controlling energies, the Archwizard's body was able to easily absorb chi from the surroundings and the woman hugging her. You certainly have talent in cultivation, Kierra, Yu Chen spoke up. It wasn't a lie. In just a few moments, Kierra was able to open several meridians in her arms and legs, jumping straight from a mortal to a novice cultivator in the middle of the chi refinement stage. There was just one problem. Isn't this too fast? At this rate, Kierra would reach the next stage in no time. Cultivation could not be rushed. One needed time to let the body adjust to its newfound power, so they would eventually have to stop when Kierra reached the foundation establishment stage, which meant we won't be able to stay like this. Worse, if Kierra got the hang of this, no, she definitely would, and then Yu Chen wouldn't be able to hug her in the name of helping anymore. At this moment, Yu Chen only had one wish, for Kierra to slow down. Phew. Kierra breathed out lightly. Letting chi enter her body was easy enough, but making room for it by further organizing her over-the-top tidy mana flows was certainly a task. She succeeded anyway. Now, she guessed that she needed to refine the energy further and make her body more comfortable with it before doing anything else, the same with cultivating mana. She wanted to experiment with this newfound strength as soon as possible. At this moment, Kierra was happy. The same could not be said for the other person, though. Congratulations, Kierra, Yu Chen bit her lips lightly and pulled away. You have broken through to the foundation establishment stage. Yu Chen was happy for Kierra, of course, but she didn't want this to end in just 15 minutes. Good job. I appreciate it, Kierra's face relaxed a little bit as she stood up. Do you still have the energy to show me some moves? Yes, of course, Yu Chen stared blankly at Kierra, who had walked to the bed and was putting on her clothes. Wait, I need to get dressed too. A few minutes later, they were ready to practice again. Based on my observation over my short life, combat in this realm heavily relies on martial arts mixed with magical abilities, usually in the form of special moves that are unique to the caster, Yu Chen began. There is a problem. Kierra replied. I don't know martial arts. Martial arts is not a requirement. It is merely popular. I see. Continue. As of right now, I can only show you some examples of what I usually use. For a cultivator to learn such special moves, they will have to reach a certain threshold of chi control, chi volume, chi refinement, and so on. Fair enough. This was not true for wizards, Kierra thought. Even novice wizards could do serious moves if they were smart enough. Another possibility was that these cultivators were just too dumb to consider strategizing. Well, let's observe for now. Kierra and Yu Chen only came out of the room an hour after that. The martial master of Qinling Peak ordered someone to watch Tianying closely and report to her immediately if she ever woke up. The two then quickly headed back to Qinling Peak via flying, where they met Bai Qing at the front of the house. Welcome back, Master, Kierra, she bowed. If I may ask, how did it go? The sect leader will wake up after a day, Yu Chen happily replied. What good news? Bai Qing hurriedly excused herself to go in and tell her junior martial sisters this piece of information. The two looked at Bai Qing's back warmly. It just occurred to me, Yu Chen suddenly spoke up. Where do you live, Kierra? Another universe, Kierra replied. She looked up at the sky, reminiscing about her old world. A sentimental hue fell on her face. Oh, well. I can probably go back after I recover my mana anyway. She decided that it was, in fact, not a big deal after 3 seconds. Yu Chen, on the other hand, was confused. Excuse me? Just know that I currently don't have a place to live in this world, Kierra cleared her throat. But I will have you know, I still have my own realm. That is indeed incredible, Yu Chen was genuinely impressed. Not many people in this world had the ability to create realms for themselves, but still. Yu Chen wanted Kierra to have a home. She didn't want anyone to live on the streets as she and her parents did 800 years ago. So Yu Chen spoke up again. For your effort, I still want to honor. Seeing Yu Chen's earnest eyes, Kierra couldn't help but nod. She didn't particularly need a room as she had made her own paradise, a pocket dimension with space magic back in the old world. It was one of the numerous dimensions that she'd made in proud collaboration with her partner. Wait. Realization. Kierra hurriedly closed her eyes and tried to reach out to her pocket dimensions, where all of her magic tools, scrolls, weapons, elixirs, etc. were. And I can't reach most of them. Because the majority of the pocket dimensions were heavily linked to her partner, and as of right now, Kierra couldn't get in contact with it, the things inside the dimensions were as good as gone. TCH. Kierra cursed in her heart. She only had access to the My Room dimension and the Junk dimension right now. The latter one contained mostly defective items, low-grade potions, and such. One of the reasons why Kierra remained so confident until now was that she had a mountain of overpowered items she'd collected over the years that included thousands of mana potions, which she could instantly consume and regain some of her strength. I need to get in touch with it soon. The mana potions weren't a big deal, they could only recover a fraction of her mana reserve anyway, but the items were a certain problem. It seemed like she had to do some stargazing tonight. At this point, it was already sunset, so she just needed to wait for a few more hours. Yu Chen. Yes? Mind showing me around this sect of yours? If Kierra wanted to convert these people into proud members of the brand new Crimson Tower, she needed to know what they were like first. Yu Chen quickly agreed. She led Kierra around Qinlin Peak first, from the mansion, the medicine garden, and the hot spring to the isolated training area. Kierra liked this place. She couldn't properly describe the feeling, but she wanted to at least try living here for a while. Next, Yu Chen guided Kierra around the sections. They went to greet the people of the remaining peaks, the elders, the deacons. Through the halls, the arenas, the small town below the mountains. They went to every single place that they could. Now standing on the tallest mountain that enabled them to overlook the entire sect, Yu Chen had a warm expression on her face. It's a humble place, she said softly. It is, Kierra replied. It had turned night. The people of the White Lotus sect naturally had their street and house lights on, revealing a beautiful sight of a lotus burning in the dark background. I see what you guys did with the buildings, Kierra commented. She liked the idea of shaping the town like this. It was cheesy, but she could feel the love they put into it. It was Master's idea, Yu Chen smiled, her purple eyes sparkling as they reflected the light coming from below. Kierra, I really can't thank you enough for saving her life. Yu Chen was always the top candidate for inheriting the sect leader position. She was the current sect leader's disciple, she was strong, beautiful, and had a good personality. She took pride in it, until 30 years ago. When Tianyun caught the disease, people pushed her even more. They were so sure that Tianyun would die, so they flooded to Yu Chen. This made her uncomfortable. She wanted to live and receive her master's teachings for thousands of years to come, yet. But that ended now. Yu Chen, holding her utmost gratitude, bowed deeply toward Kierra. She was fighting not to cry at this moment for fear that it might seem unsightly. Yu Chen. Kierra looked at the woman in front of her calmly. Won't you stargaze with me? White Lotus Sect, on a mountain near Qinling Peak. Yu Chen and Kierra were sitting on the wooden chairs that the Archwizard made a bit earlier. The sky was cloudless, the moon was bright, and the stars were shining brilliantly. Yu Chen sat there blankly, admiring the beautiful sight. She'd been buried in cultivation these years, so taking a breather like this was not bad, she thought. Kierra, on the other hand, was trying her best to read the stars. To begin with, her journey as a wizard started with a summoned creature, then accompanied and supported by summoned creatures. One such being that Kierra met was a total surprise for her. In fact, she was so impressed by this creature that she decided not to bind it by any contract, instead treating it like a simple friend, and this was when she'd already become the world's best. The spawn of the universe, Cosmos. No one knew what it looked like when it was born, how strong it was, and what its purposes were truly, except for Kierra. It and Kierra had a lot of similarities. They were both unimaginably strong and equally bored. That was why they collaborated to stir the universe up for some simple fun, and they eventually reached this point where Kierra was in a whole different universe. How did Kierra know that it was another universe? The star formations here are nothing like ours. To call upon the ancient being, Kierra needed to grasp the general star structures of wherever she was so she could accurately create an appropriate summon circle. After all, wherever there were stars, cosmos would always be present. That was what the creature itself promised her. Memorizing millions of visible stars in the sky was virtually impossible, but with a brain like Kierra's combined with some other techniques, it was not just a pipe dream. Merely 10 minutes later, Kierra was ready. She stood up and pulled out a can of magical paint, the type that was usually used for summoning. Using simple telekinesis, she began to draw an intricate magical formula on the ground. Yu Chen, who was engrossed in watching the stars, got lifted away together with her chair by Kierra because the Archwizard needed to paint on the part she was sitting on. Evicted from the giant formula, Yu Chen could only stare blankly at the concentrating Kierra. Eventually, it was completed. Standing in the middle, Kierra poured a little bit of mana into the formula and began to chant. Born from the sea and the waves, from a cosmic array. Shaped by galaxies. Veiled by nebulas. Fueled by molten rivers of plasma. At this moment, I call upon you, the creature of stars. As soon as Kierra finished chanting, a burst of brilliant cosmic mana surrounded her. The energy seemed to be recreating the universe itself, swirling around intensely with the Archwizard as its singularity. Yu Chen, who could now perceive mana faintly, marveled. It was easily the most incredible thing she had ever seen or felt. The cluster of cosmic mana gradually began to shrink itself, gathering in a spot before Kierra. The light cut off completely, and what remained there was a small sun-like white sphere. It radiated a gentle aura, spinning lazily in the air. Cosmos, Kierra smiled. Kierra. A neutral voice sounded from the sphere. Nice to see you again, Kierra continued. Let us discuss what happened under the stars. Gladly. So Kierra went over and sat beside Yu Chen again. After a brief introduction of both sides, Kierra began to recount her story. Cosmos, who was floating beside Kierra's head, listened in silence. Cosmos, can you access our pocket dimensions now? I am afraid not, this universe is foreign to me, so my power is limited. As expected. Kierra noticed her partner's strength had significantly shrunk since she summoned it, but she asked just to be sure. Do you need any help recovering your power? It would be much appreciated. All right, Kierra nodded. Yu Chen, guide me to the library later. I understand. Cosmos was an entity closely related to the origin of the universe. And in the universe, one thing was constant, time. The reason why it grew to become strong enough to devour planets was because it existed for a mind-bogglingly long time. But time itself was not necessarily Cosmos's primary source of power, but the things gained from time were. Knowledge. Cosmos thrived on knowledge. The more it knew about the world around it, the more it became stronger. It seemed to Kierra that this universe had a totally different set of principles compared to her old one. That was probably why Cosmos got weakened. So, to recover Cosmos's strength in this world, feeding it as much information as possible was needed, and the library was the perfect place. After relaxing on the mountaintop for a little more, Yu Chen guided Kierra to the sex library. It was a relatively large and tall building with a total of 7 floors. Books here are categorized by how rare or valuable the information they contain is, Yu Chen explained. The higher the floor is, the more precious books you will find. Any restrictions? Kierra asked. I, as the martial master of the Qinling Peak, don't have any, but the lower disciples have. I see. It's similar to our tower's library. In any case, I can get you permission to access our entire library. I assume the books are important to your friend, am I correct? Yu Chen smiled lightly at Kierra. They are. I appreciate your help, Kierra smiled back. It's natural. I still have lots to repay. After some talking with the person in charge of the library, the three entered the building. Cosmos, feast to your heart's content. Kierra petted the small sphere lightly. Gladly. Just like that, they began their journey in the library. While waiting for Cosmos to absorb the information in the books, Kierra went on to read some of the more interesting ones according to Yu Chen's recommendations. She was mainly interested in the history of this world, as well as the general powers existing currently. As they ascended the floors one by one, books about combat techniques and cultivation methods began to appear more frequently. On the 7th floor, only one bookshelf was available. These are our sect's most valuable books, Kierra. Kierra nodded. The protection array was indeed more potent here. While thinking that, it seemed Cosmos had already gone to eat the books. She noticed her partner was somewhat more enthusiastic than usual. Are they all cultivation methods? Yes. Each sect will have their own unique methods that they have developed throughout the years. Unique, you say? Kierra pondered. Cosmos, are these very good? Very much so. I can recover very quickly if there were more of them. As expected. Kierra scratched her chin, her eyebrows narrowed a bit. Kierra, don't tell me you're going to invade other sects as well. Yu Chen asked nervously. I don't see why not, Kierra shrugged. In fact, I changed my mind. Kierra checked her mana reserve. Roughly 15%. Based on Yu Chen's descriptions of the Lightning Tiger sect, she should be able to take care of them easily. Let us capture the Lightning Tiger sect right now.